So creatively, this is a big change for me. My Leica Q2 Ghost is sold. I'm moving away from my Leica SL2 and I'm reinvesting all the money back into my Nikon Z8 system. And today, we're going to talk about why I'm moving away from Leica and moving towards the Nikon. Big thank you to my friends at MPB for sponsoring today's video. We'll talk about them a little bit later on. So this video is kind of a long time coming. If you've paid attention to a lot of the videos on the channel, you know that I've had mixed feelings about my Leica Q2 and I've had mixed feelings just about my Leica system in general since I really started using it in 2020. Now, at the end of 2020, my objective, I guess, from switching from Nikon to Leica was to have a camera that was hybrid, have something that could do great video, something that could do great photo. But after using the camera for close to 4 years now, I realized some of the shortcomings with Leica, and that's going to be part of the thing we talk about in today's video. It's not going to be the main focus, but it is going to highlight some of the issues that come with using such an expensive and somewhat niche camera brand. Now, the backstory on this video really starts with the everyday carry video that I created at the beginning of this year. If you caught that video, you know my camera setup to start 2024 was just extremely chaotic. I had way too much stuff. I was using different cameras for different things. There was really no system. And when the Nikon Z8 entered the fold, I had a lot of decisions to make to just make things easier for me as a creator and a photographer who is doing a number of things. Now, you might notice we're in a different setup right now. This is a new creative space that I've moved into. I'm extremely excited. It's much bigger. I have so much more possibilities with this space. And with this new space, I want to look at this as a fresh start and give myself some new goals for myself as a creator. You see, this year, the main project I've been working on as a photographer is my daily photo project on Instagram. The tag or the handle on that account is EvanRampPhoto. My goal is to share one photo every single day and use that as a way for me to create a new body of work, which eventually could lead to maybe a new book, maybe a new zine. It's been a lot of fun and very refreshing for me to work on that project. And I guess what I'm trying to say is right now I'm in a place where I'm recognizing what I really enjoy about photography, what I enjoy about creating internet content around photography, and I have some direction of where I want to go and what general energy I want to have around my creative process. That's the first goal, is just get back to loving pictures and making things around photography that I personally get a lot of enjoyment out of. And the second goal I have is getting back to just documenting the process of me discovering and loving and enjoying photography, similar to what I was doing prior to 2020. Just getting back to the roots of this channel. Now, that's not to say I'm going to do a complete 180 and live in the past, but I want to start making videos on this channel again, maybe once a month, where I just go out and make pictures. Now, to make that possible, I need some type of system that replicates the system I had before I just tried too many things. So let's get into it. That was kind of a long intro, but I think it's important to understand the context of this decision. Now, the first reason I'm switching from Leica to Nikon is simply eliminating creative limitations. Now, if you've caught previous videos where I talk about some of the shortcomings of the Leica SL2 and even the Q2, you know that there were situations with both of those cameras that were just less than ideal. One of the biggest ones being low light. I've talked about this a million times. With the SL2 being my main photo camera, the low light capability was less than stellar. You know, I never really talked too negatively about it because at the end of the day, it's my decision to use that camera, but I found myself a lot of times avoiding low light. I found myself avoiding long exposures and not doing the creative, fun photography that I was doing prior to 2020 because I just simply couldn't with the main camera I was using. And also with the SL2, the battery life was a big issue. I constantly had to mentally prepare for a battery running out if I was doing photo and video video, I had to be really cautious about keeping extra batteries with me, and there's an added cost to that. But primarily, there were some things with the SL2, especially on the photo side, that I felt like I was constantly having to work around, and with the Nikon system, I'm just getting a more well-rounded camera that I feel more comfortable putting in essentially any and every situation. Now, the second reason I'm choosing to finally leave Leica is just access to a nice lineup of native lenses. Now, Leica has their amazing lenses for their SL system. They obviously have amazing lenses for their M cameras, but the problem is these lenses are extremely expensive. You know, I do this for a living. This is my business. I can get a tax write-off by buying these expensive lenses, but I could never justify purchasing a 35mm or a 50mm prime for $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. Regardless of how good it is, it just never sat well with me. And I was always buying the things like Sigma lenses for L mount. I was buying different, other brands that weren't Leica lenses. I was even using Panasonic lenses on my Leica, which there's nothing wrong with, but I wanted to get back to just using lenses that are actually built by the manufacturer for the camera they're intended to be used for. Because what I found with my Leica is sometimes using a third-party lens, the autofocus might be a little bit off, or there might be a little funny things that happen here and there because the lens that's made by a third party is never going to be as good as the lens made by the actual manufacturer of the camera. There's not that synergy there, no matter what people say. It's close, but it's just not the same. So by using the Z8, I now have access to Nikon's incredible and expanding lineup of lenses, and the lens that I recently picked up is actually the 14 to 24mm lens, which was my favorite lens when I was using Nikon prior to 2020, and I can't wait to start using this again with the Z8, and hopefully give myself the ability to maybe start doing more vlog type elements in these videos, or those videos where I go out and actually make photography and just share what I'm doing as a creator. Now, with that being said, this switch that I have planned is going to be a switch that takes a little bit of time. Right now, I'm slowly moving into picking up more things for the Nikon system, getting rid of things for the Leica SL2 system, and really getting myself to this stabilized point. And this would not be possible without today's sponsor, MPB. Now, this sponsor for today's video was something that I actually facilitated. MPB did not reach out to me. I reached out to them and said, hey, I'm planning on making this switch. I love y'all's service. Could we work together on a video? And they said yes. And let me tell you, this is the best service out there if you're looking to make a change with your camera equipment, get rid of any camera equipment that you're not using, or you're looking to upgrade or switch to something different. Now, this is how MPB worked for the process of me being able to pick up this new lens for my Nikon Z8, as well as some other equipment that I have on the way. All I did was I went onto MPB and I entered in the camera gear that I was looking to sell. In today's video, let's just use my Leica Q2 as an example, even though it's not here with me. You type in your camera, you find the one that comes up from their database and select that. Then you select whatever condition you believe the camera is in. Now, MPB looks over all the equipment that they receive. They give it a stamp of approval if it matches the condition that you think it's in. Sometimes they'll upgrade it and you can actually make more money after someone sees the camera and inspects it, but in this case I was just honest and said the camera was used. Now from there, MPB generates a quote for you. You send the camera off to them after they send you a label that you just print out, put on a box. You make sure you get the tracking number when you drop it off at FedEx, and within a few days you receive an email saying your package has been received. They go through everything that you are looking to sell, they verify the quality of it and make sure everything's there, and then you'd receive a final quote in your email. And from there, all you gotta do is enter in your banking information and you receive a wire once you approve that quote. It is as simple as that. This entire process of me selling my Leica Q2 took, I want to say, about a week, maybe 9 days total if you include the weekend. It was the smoothest process I've ever had for selling any camera gear, especially when you compare it to, other places on the internet that are a little bit shady, or places where I don't know, they don't have their system as dialed in. And another great thing about MPB is this trustworthiness is well documented on the internet. There are 24,000 positive Trustpilot reviews, and they have a score of 4.8, which is unheard of with any internet business. And on average, customers save 30% when they buy gear from MPB versus buying it new. So if you're a creator out there maybe looking to work on a budget, save a little bit of money as you purchase new gear, MPB is also a great place to do that. And something that I personally like about MPB is the fact that you can see actual photos of the used gear you're buying, so you can get a real good understanding of any signs of wear or if this is the right piece of equipment for you. So check out MPB for yourself if you're planning to buy or sell any used camera gear. There is a link in the description down below. By using that link, you support the channel and you help me continue to do the thing I love and create these videos for y'all. Now, the next thing we got to talk about is another limitation from the Leica SL2 that has really driven me to move into the Z8, and this is the fact that the hybrid system on the Leica SL2, as great as it was, had a ton of limitations on the video side. One of the biggest issues being autofocus and just, I don't know, the general quirkiness of the video with that camera. I could never get it absolutely perfect for every single situation. There were times where I could make amazing cinematic looking video, but if I wanted to do something more casual, I found myself struggling with the SL2. So this idea of the SL2 from Leica being the perfect hybrid camera, which is what I envisioned when I bought it, just never came to fruition. And as I've been using the Nikon Z8, this feels like a much better hybrid option for someone who is not only trying to create photography, but also create internet media. And I do realize that not everyone is going to relate to that situation. There's a lot of people out there who only want to do video. Some people only want to do photo, but for someone like me who has this combination of both, having a camera system that is more well-rounded all around makes a whole lot of sense. And the Z8 did not exist in 2020 when I picked up the Leica, so it's not like this was an option at the time. It's just now I finally have something that maybe can serve the purpose that I wanted the Leica system to serve a little bit better going forward. Now, the next reason I'm making this switch is to have more clearly defined roles for the camera gear that I'm using. Like I already mentioned, that everyday carry video that I made earlier this year was extremely chaotic. I had multiple cameras that were like everyday cameras that maybe didn't find their way onto the YouTube channel. I had one camera for video, one camera for photo, lenses going back and forth between all of them. It was just too much. Now going back to essentially the same system that I used prior to 2020, I have one main camera body, my Z8, which is designated for all my photo and all my video professionally for this YouTube channel and any situation where I'm out and I need to do both, or if I want to make photos with interchangeable lenses, this is the one system that I'm going to use. I'll probably eventually pick up another Z8, so simultaneously I can do photo and video on the exact same system. And by doing that, if I want to bring any other cameras into the mix, maybe I want to keep my Leica QP, or if I eventually want to get, say, a Leica M of some type, these cameras can be defined as cameras that are used for creative purposes, for fun purposes, but they don't make their way sometimes into my professional workflow. They don't always have to make their way into my YouTube videos, and it's just going to be easier mentally for me to have one option that is tried and true, consistent, and then anything fun can be fun, or anything for art can be for art. That was the way I approached camera equipment before 2020, and that's really what I want to go back to, because like I said, the goal is to just get back to creating and doing what I love and documenting it. So by having clearly defined roles for the cameras that I'm using and understanding this is for this and these other things are for this, it just makes the mental overwhelm of camera equipment and having all these options a lot easier for me. And personally, that's something that I was so against prior to 2020, which was letting camera gear and all these options get in the way of the creative process. And unfortunately, I have fallen victim to that as of late, and I just want to get away from it. Now there's two more brief quick reasons why I'm moving from the Leica system back over to Nikon. The first is actually a reliability issue. You see, my Leica SL2, as amazing of a camera as it was extremely inconsistent at times, especially with, I guess, the software or the firmware inside the camera. There were times where if I switched out the battery, I would have to put the time and date back into the camera, and I never understood why. And there were also times where the Leica SL2 would just freeze up on me completely. I'd have to pull the battery out, and then I'd have to reset the time and the date once again. This is a problem that I've had since the time I purchased the camera, and unfortunately I never had an opportunity to send it off to get fixed because it was the main thing I was using for all my creative work. This is my job after all, and I can't go without this camera. And because the Leica is so expensive, I couldn't just buy another one to replace it on the spot. We're talking about $6,000 plus to have a backup camera, which never made sense. And that in itself could be a whole other reason for this switch, just the general cost of Leica, but it should be assumed. You know, with the Leica SL2, I can't go buy 3 of the cameras, whereas with the Nikon system, buying 2 Z8s is expensive, but isn't as expensive as doing it with Leica. So cost is definitely involved, but reliability of the cameras was a big factor for me. I just got sick of finding myself in situations where my workflow was disrupted by something completely outside of my control. Now, the final thing we have to talk about is another weird thing that I never expected with Leica cameras, but became very apparent to me once I purchased the Leica Q2 Ghost. The Q2 Ghost is a very cool looking camera. It's all silver, it doesn't have any logos on it, but it draws a lot of attention. And I found myself having my creative process interrupted because I had this camera that was such an attention grabber, I guess you would say. I would go out and shoot and I would feel uncomfortable because the camera didn't blend in whatsoever. You know, the whole point of street photography or just going out and doing documentary photography, for me at least, is to not be seen, to blend into my surroundings, to find this almost peace in what I'm creating. So to have your camera draw this attention to you, one, interrupts the thing that you enjoy doing, but it also makes you feel like a potential opportunity to someone who is looking for one. You know, there's always a level of, I guess the word I'm looking for is risk or something like that. There's always a little risk involved with going out and making photos with a camera, especially in a densely populated place, but that risk just felt amplified when I was using the Leica cameras, especially that Q2 Ghost that drew in so much attention. And for me, I hated the fact that this was, one, disrupting me, but also making me at times want to leave my camera at home because it just felt too flashy. It felt like too many people would notice the camera, and I don't know, it just never sat well with me. And by going back to the Nikon, if I tape over the logo, I just look like essentially a tourist with a camera, and I blend in much better, which is something personally that I like and helps me feel creative. That might not be the case for everyone, but there's just something, I guess, unsettling about walking around with a camera that is, one, so expensive, but also draws so much attention to you. Anyways, that is an extremely long-winded explanation of how I got here. I'll see y'all in the next video.